So I understand the audience at this conference is a little bit sort of shy and stuff. You can ask, so how did it go, and how many people are taking backups and whatever. So instead, I have a panel that I will ask things to see whether that works better. I presume it will, because I know these great people. We'll start with Fredrik Ljunggren, that I've been known for quite some time, from Kirei. What he does not know about electronic IDs, COVID passports, or tickets for public transportation is not worth knowing. Okay, let me just tell. And we would have had everything in order in Sweden if people just listened to Fredrik some more. So, Fredrik. And then we have Anna, that are known for approximately 68 minutes. Anyways, from Orange Cyberdefense. And you've been working with security for all your life, I understand?
Yep.
And now at Orange Cyberdefense Global.
Yes.
And you can explain a little bit more what you have been doing later on. And then I have to my right, Jimmy from Svenska Stadsnätsföreningen. He started as a programmer to develop secure code for routers, then ended up in Servanet, into Stadsnätsföreningens board, and then hired because he did such a great job. So anyways, here you are.
Thank you.
The idea with this panel is that we should talk about, like, we all know what is crappy. We have heard so many people saying what is wrong. We are going to talk a little bit more about what is happening that is going well, and also what would we like to happen to make it go even faster. We heard Matthias, we will probably hear Ove from PTS. They will both talk about the necessity of having more effect faster. So yes, I want you to talk about what great things you're doing, but in the context of how can we make that even better. But let's start by talking a little bit about iPhones. There. So, first question, how come we have recurring incidents? We heard both Matthias in the morning and then Sandra talking about repeating things. We have seen ransomware. We've seen ransomware since 1993. Why is this recurring?
How come we're still crashing with our cars?
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. So still, you look at the traffic in Stockholm, and they crash into each other every day. So it's still occurring.
So it's a problem that we have more and more cars.
Yeah, a little bit like we have more and more traffic, more and more cars, more complex situations, and we get increasingly dependent on having the roads open. So when there is a small crash, there will be a large congestion and all that. So of course we can do much better as well, but I think one explanation is actually that the bar gets higher for each day as well.
But on the traffic side, we do have regulation. You have to go and do your yearly checkup of your car. You have the speed limitation stuff, but people still... So we sort of have these kind of regulations. You say that doesn't help?
Well, you even have these crash radars and all that in the car, but it still doesn't help. People crash anyway. So I think we will still see this happening. I think it's just an utopia to think that it will completely go away, but we can do much better, and we can probably sort of mitigate the consequences quite good.
Jimmy?
So as long as we have people driving, I think we're going to have this problem. Actually, I think it's people which is the main problem.
So we should replace humans with AI, and then everything is fine.
Yes,
then
yes and no.
Then we have the war of machines and everything.
If the machines is not made by humans, but I don't think we're going to think like that.
So Anna, so what's up?
And I agree with both of you. We have humans, but we also have political surroundings. We deploy more and more technology. The hackers are getting better and better. So if we start to think as hackers in graphs instead of tables, and do the basics, because we still miss a lot of the basics.
Yeah. So the regulation and other kind of rules and recommendation we have, do they help?
Yes and no, but we must implement training, more hands-on training for the moment. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Sorry. So, but But there have been a lot of discussion regarding the NIS2 directive, where some people say will solve all the problems in the world. Will it?
Oh, no.
No.
Fredrik? Okay,
I just
you were
had the
quick.
pleasure of actually sort of going through every word in the Delegating Act under NIS2, which states all the risk management controls that everyone affected, these critical entities should implement. And what we're seeing is that I have not experienced that detailed regulation before. It's down to the words on shall do this, this, and that. It's not sort of the normal way of regulating things is to have some outcome-based approach to it. We should achieve this. But this implementing act says how you should do it, not what the outcome should be.
So what you're saying is that talking about how you should do things only might help if you, to start with, you must know what you're doing and what kind of outcome you want. So,
Exactly,
yeah.
and since everyone is different beasts here, what is in there will not fit everyone and may not lead to the outcome. So I hope that our regulators will, when they implement it in Swedish law, will actually sort of scrub this a little bit, so we get a more flexible regulation that actually can stand the test of time as well.
So, Anna, isn't it the case also that NS2 and others those are regulations, compliance regulations like ex-ante regulation towards the IT systems themselves? It doesn't say much about whatever kind of functionality in the society that the IT systems are supporting. Is there a gap there as well?
I think I agree with what you said before, that you more complexity and you more detailed you describe it and come to each and every line action you need to do, it's confused people. Easier, understanding of it, put more in guidance. How do I get there? Because if you read it and you're not very good in security, you're completely lost. So if we can guide people to follow the regulations in a better way, that's where I think we should address and focus.
But it's still sort of how you should do things, right?
Yeah.
You agree with that part. So how come the regulator is writing these kind of things, rules that are so many people talk about NS2 will solve everything? How come that is going on, Jimmy? Don't people listen to us? Obviously not.
No, exactly. I think they have a good approach, but they are going a little bit too far, I think, and controlling everything. I think we must do that.
So I started by having us talk a little bit about the future. What would actually make things better? What would you like to see from the regulator and the politicians and such?
Better guidelines to implement it and guidelines to. I don't know actually, but I think we must take it to our own approach actually and do things that we must prioritize ourselves and do and start doing it actually.
Okay. And if we sort of leave the current proposed legislation in NIS and otherwise, what else can sort of the politicians help with?
I think, well, politicians, I don't know if they can help, but perhaps our regulator.
Well, they're doing a lot of things, so let me ask you differently. As they are doing things, which they do because they want to be re-elected, what do you want them to do?
Not sure, actually. I think what we have now in front of us is the NIS2, and we have the CER directive. And now we are in the progress of implementing the Cybersecurity Act in Sweden. And then after that, we will go about having the regulators pushing the instructions or and from there, I think we will need a whole other set of type of guidance than we usually had with the Protective Security Act, because when you approach the regulators, the supervisory authorities under that, they sort of push everything to you. You have the guidance from the police, but here we will need much more guidance on actually by what measures will we be judged, because we have all this set of controls, but how do we know when we're finished with this? Because it's not clear. And if you're not doing it, you will have penalties. So we need sort of basically, how do we determine compliance? rather than a school book, because we already have those.
But this sounds a little bit like the interaction between us and the politicians, when in reality what we start to talk about is how well our IT systems actually work and function. And those seems to be two slightly different things. So if we take a step back and instead look at how do we get our IT systems and others better, what should we do and what is happening? Anna?
Just to finalize what we saw, politicians,
Yep.
I think it's important that they don't go in and over-regulate.
Yeah.
I think that's key, and also work on the international regulations, because
You mean harmonization between jurisdictions, etc.?
Yes, but what we can do better is work more systematic around security, learn, take it in steps, do the basic, because a lot of this that we see today is basic security that shouldn't happen. You know, MFA. How many years have we been talking about MFA? Many years.
Let's come back to MFA as a good example, I think. But if we continue with this, so we have these agencies that is responsible for example, telecommunication or finance or whatever. So we'll have these regulations that talk about either like you need to be conformant to certain rules or other kind of things, or you get penalties. And then you talk about the need for guidance so that you know beforehand whether you're actually following the rules or not. But there must also be some kind of support system. It's like if you have a whip and a carrot, you cannot just do whip to get the horse to drink the water. It's good to also help and support. Is that not happening enough in Sweden, you think, and in the world?
Not in all sectors, but in some sectors I think our sector is quite good at that, actually.
In the telecommunication sector?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think we will hear Ove Landberg talk a little bit about what they're doing, for example. Yeah. Other examples?
I think a little bit more of the carrot piece.
Yeah.
Show good examples that foster the right behaviors. We
But
all know how it is to, correct a child or something. That saying that you're doing bad is not necessarily always driving the right.
But then we're living in a market economy.
Yep.
Is all of this sort of crappy things also an indication that the market economy is not working correctly? Are the buyers competent enough to buy the right things,
exactly,
and do the sellers sell only crap?
I mean, obviously not. We can say that the buyers does not set the proper requirements, and why does this? Where is the glitch between them? And I mean, obviously, the provider and the customer's interest may not be perfectly aligned always. So in that sense, the NIS2 can be sort of a new tool for them, because you could use recourse aim that at your provider, so they will actually have to shoulder the penalties if they fail. But you can count on actually having a more expensive product bought from them as well.
But it seems to be the case then that the buyer, I see some cases where it looks like if the buyer completely agree with the salesperson what they're going to sort of trade, but the buyer don't really know what things are actually needed. So there is a disconnect there as well.
And that's where I think IT security can help the procurement to set standards. But what do we want to see if we buy, I don't know, an X-ray machine or a car, or whatever it is, production environments, etc., that they actually come in and recommend and help and guide what to procure and how it should be secured. We're doing too little of that.
But that means that public sector then, sort of the fourth leg of the public side of the society, have a pretty important role of being a good procurer, right?
Yep.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
We have some bad
Are they good enough?
No, they're not.
Okay.
We have some good examples in the media just a couple of days ago, where security maybe were not top.
Please bring it up. Maybe not everywhere. I don't really know what you're talking about, because I see examples every second day or something.
I think it was called, when we were younger, it was called CP Pro. I don't think that's allowed to say anymore, but it's these national tests.
National, yes, the national
where the students can access each other personal data, which this whole going from paper to digital was a huge investment, cost a lot of money, and now they had to park it 1 week before the first tests.
So Jimmy, how come
Good
we in
example
the
of
IT...
not the way to do
So how
it.
come we in the IT business deliver such crappy products? Are we that crap?
It's the price.
Well, you left the product development side, right?
Yeah, yeah, I did. But if you want good products, you must pay for it. Actually, that's one of the problem. I think is the price tag. Often you demand quite a lot, but in the end, you buy the cheapest one.
But if it is the case that the demand, the requirement from the procurement is actually to have quality,
Yeah.
if then the price tag came back and said, no, that is too expensive, what you are saying is that then the requirements are lowered to get down to the quality of a price which they are prepared to pay. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm afraid that's.
So it's a little bit more complicated than saying that the buyer don't set the right requirements.
I think they want. I think most of them want. They know what they want, but not ready to pay for it. Actually.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of them.
I've been looking a little bit about procurement of internet access. I don't see much questions of IPv6 as an absolute requirement.
No.
But that's because that's not needed, right, Emil? Yeah. Anyways, so it. Let's see. So the next question, I would like to talk about this potential gap within the procurer that would like to buy products, where I have been trying to dive into where the question of whether an organization that do something, deliver clean water or run buses or trains or whatever, they have certain IT systems that they sort of depend on, but whoever do the procurement of the IT systems might not really know and don't really have a map over what IT systems might actually impact the production of whatever the organization is producing. So what is your view over sort of how well an organization actually know what they are doing?
You mean like the provider know what they're doing, or the
No, the procurer.
The procurer, yeah.
Specifically the ones that are non-IT ones, whether they know what IT systems they need.
Yeah.
Because my thesis, and as you might heard, we at Netnod said, we think that gap is much wider than what we want, and you can tell us we're wrong.
I guess they're after feature and functions. That's what they look at. If they're going to buy something, they want to have all the feature and functions of that product.
Even regardless of whether they need the features and functions.
Yeah, because if you...
It's a feature.
It's a feature and function, and that's cool, and I want to have it, and then you kind of forget about the other things. How is this system going to live item-wise with the other systems? What data is shared? How is it connected? You can't really put where you have that product, how that product is going to live its life in production.
Okay,
I think
so
missing that connection
got
very
it.
often.
So even if you have to try to repeat what you said to see that I understood, even if you have someone that really knows what a certain system should do, and it is exactly what they need and nothing extra, they have still not understood really within what context that system will live, right?
Probably.
And maybe it's because the sort of procurement takes a long time, so all the neighboring systems have changed their APIs or whatever, yeah. Okay.
I mean, specifically, the NIS2 is aimed at this supply chain security thing, where you are required to actually push your business requirements onto your providers, and if they use other services in beneath, it should go all the way. So that is actually a specific aim of NIS2, and there are some fairly decent requirements around that, which could perhaps improve the situation a bit. And we were also talking about like standards to actually put on the providers, and that is sort of missing. I mean, if a procurement ask, okay, so can we put some IT security standard here? Well, maybe ISO 20, let's have that. And then we just put it in, and it doesn't really matter. It's an information security management system. It's how the management should sort of stay connected with the organization. And it's not used for, it's not meaningful really to actually push that on your providers and suppliers.
I think I agree with you. It's almost, you want to checkbox things only, but you need to test also quite a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think that is done. You need more. You need to do it more and more. often.
You work quite a lot with certification-like processes, even though not everyone is that. Can you explain a little bit more what steps are included in the development of such a process? This was really unprepared questions. I'm putting him a little bit on the spot here, so my apologies.
See if we can speak in English in that one. But we have we try to make de facto standards. Actually, that's our main target. If you're going to do a de facto standard, you must gather all around that have knowledge about it, and you must implement it. Everyone must think it's good, and all that. You must also be prepared to add your knowledge in it, and also accept levels that you agree to implement in the certification. That's
so you sort of start. What I hear is that you're saying is that you sort of start by looking at what people are doing, and you collect the best practices.
Yes.
So that people don't really have to change what they're doing. They should just everyone try to sort of raise the bar a little bit and be better on what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you add the certification test and
add the standards and all that
yeah.
that you need to have, but you don't. Everyone doesn't know. Everyone doesn't need to read everything, but you can, if you understand what you're going to do with it, with the standard, that's fine.
Should we do more of that, Fredrik?
I think so, and I think the NIS2 can actually act a little bit as a cybersecurity standard, because it is sort of a subset of the ISO 2701 standard with some selected parts of the Appendix A. So it makes up a sort of standard. I was just wishing that it was formulated on another level. But apart from that, I think that actually can make some good.
Yeah, good. So what else should we do? We heard about like multi-factor authentication and stuff. So why don't we have that more? Is it too hard? Not enough documentation? Not enough penalties?
It's
Where are we?
All thing, security bolt on instead of built in. I think that's still the same kind of question. Prioritize security, put it in when you're developing a new product or a feature or a system, put it in from the beginning, follow that with security, think twice. I know that Sandra spoke about zero trust. Yes, that's a big problem, because if you start to use SaaS services and on-prem or private cloud, you end up with a mixed architecture that you need to take a look at, because that's really, really hard to protect.
So if
zero trust.
Yeah. So given that we have systems and we're not supposed to bolt things on, how do we do how we go from here to there? Then that means that we have to do a forklift upgrade, or do we keep the old system the old way and then we start something new?
I think
more of that, I guess.
Yeah. I think actually we have to ask for more from our security professionals. Because we have these guys and girls that are working on the technical level. They do a fantastic job. And then they have the business people that runs this ISMS, and there is nothing in between. There's no traction at all. There's very nice processes for everything, but traction to the business is very limited in many cases, I would say. So my point is we need to close that gap. Okay. So the security professionals that is working on the sort of business level, they will have to reach down to the technical level. And the technical level will have to reach up to the business so they understand what is actually important here. Because if you drag out your security toolbox and you just throw everything on your complete IT environment, there will be, nothing will be really great. You will just have things scattered, basically. So I think one key is actually to sort of scope what is actually important for the business and try to focus on that and make priorities, because we have limited resources on how.
And then close the gap, as you're saying.
And I agree to that. If all the companies and organizations, they have a purpose, they have a business goal to reach. And security should not hinder that. Security should ensure that the business can reach their goals in the best way they can and close down the security risk. We can never get risk-free. That's for sure.
And that's where the security people need to talk to each other, I presume.
Exactly.
You say, Fredrik,
Get
because
closer.
if you introduce some security issues the wrong way, it might be hard instead of enabling the security if it's the wrong things. Yeah. So what else do we need? Or do you have any more concrete suggestions of what is needed to make that happen? Because it sounds a little bit like an organizational structure issue and not so much a technical security, really.
I think it's actually a little bit of both. It's also sort of a mindset. And so the management will just have to ask for more from the security department and say that, look, we have a business here. We need to sort out what is the most important things. And we will have aimed our resources on that, and we make sure that the business still operates. And they are sort of, well, at least that's my perception when I talk to my customers, that the security people are sort of on the side. They decide on security matters, but
but they don't really participate in the organization, right? Oh, okay.
A little bit like that.
What's the business goal?
Yeah. Okay. So can you give an examples of something that you would like to happen inside organization or cross organizations? Something that we are lacking in Sweden. What could actually make things better? What would you like to see? And after that, I will open up for you on the floor.
I agree. I would like to see more of that security can be enabler for the business to reach their goals and meet each other and talk. That's, I think, one very, very important thing.
So who should then do something to? Is it a specific role in the organization?
I think it's a way how you look at it. Instead of security come and say, no, you can't do that because it's a security risk. Instead of, okay, you want to do that because the organization is going to earn a lot of money. It will drive customers or business or whatever. Let us try to figure out a way to make this as secure as possible so you can reach your goal. Change the mindset.
Okay.
But to answer your question, who is doing what? I mean, the management will have to realize that they need to put requirements on the security.
And that argument then ends up being, you better do this or else. You might end up on the TV4 morgonsoffa, right? Is that high enough threat?
I'm not sure about that. But still, I mean, if you take on this in a structured way, it should probably be something like that, like going about realizing why are we still having all these vulnerabilities? It's because we are distracted. We have spread out our resources over a too big area. So we need to focus on what is actually important and make sure that is what we're aiming our resources at.
So Jimmy, what do you think is important? What is really important? If you can choose one thing that you would like to happen.
Don't see security as a separate section or something like that. It's everything. You must have security everything. It's the IT personnel must have security knowledge actually. I think it's very, very simple to do that if we think that is a good thing.
Anna?
I think.
And invest in learning and understanding and collaboration, I think is key.
Let's see if we have any questions from the floor. Anyone around here? Well, oh no. Uh-oh.
So let's paint the picture. We have a lot of different requirements and laws. Why doesn't it happen?
Why are you speeding?
Let me rephrase it. Who owns the risk? If you GDPR, if you're a bigger company, you have a DPO. So I hear a lot of talk here that things should be done. Who is responsible for that? In the company, who is it? Because I go in and don't find that person. In companies.
Is it what I have heard, to try to interpret a little bit to get you going, and you can think a little bit in the meantime, is that there might be different people being responsible for the very specific IT-related regulation, and then you have other people that are responsible for the actual what the organizations provide, and that's where you have one of the gaps. So you don't really know who is responsible.
Yeah, even worse. I go in like, who's the risk owner? Let's say you have a bank system, right? You have regulation of DORA, you have NIS2, and I ask who owns the risk, because that's the one who prioritizes. Finding the risk owner is normally easy. You turn off the system and wait by the phone. the ones yelling the most is the risk owner. But when I ask them, they don't know it's IT. But they're earning the money on the system, but the IT is supposed to do things, but they haven't because they've been blocked. So I don't find the person who is responsible for fixing all this nice stuff and requirements. So who is it?
So bootstrapping the process that you're talking about.
Bootstrapping.
Where is that?
It's the management, right? It's the management that is responsible for the business, and they own the risks, and they are there to manage them. And to answer the next question, okay, we have all these regulations, we're still in deep trouble. Doesn't these regulations actually work? Well, let's face it, we're sort of in a shift here. We have the NIS2, we have the CER that will impact thousands of entities here. And we still haven't got the Cybersecurity Act in place. So this is something that this whole business will be impacted with. So people like me will have a lot of things to do in the next few years. So I think this is actually somewhere for good, but I also see that there aren't enough resources out there to do everything at the same time. So we need to focus our effort and make sure that we do the very right.
But how do we make management do that? I mean, you said the TV4 morning sofa, right?
Yeah,
if
that's
you don't have,
painful.
If you ask the management team who's responsible, they hide.
I don't know.
They can't
hide. I don't know. Some have shareholders to answer to. Some have regulators or other supervisory authorities, and I mean they are there to actually run a business. Usually, they are public authorities.
So the conclusion I see is that the bootstrapping process is hard, and whoever is doing the bootstrapping must have enough resources to make sure that whatever suggestions they have to changes must be able to be as frictionless as possible. So whoever is going to change, it's not sort of it's easier, not harder or something else. Yeah. So another question here in the front.
Well, I guess the person who is responsible for the IT security is CIO, and you have seen all of these stuff in US. The person who was CIO for the company, I don't remember the name of the company, he got the sentence to go to jail. So this is very obvious. The thing is, either you get fired or you have to go to the.
So I guess half of the people in the room that have the title CIO will not have it tomorrow.
This is the way it works.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a bit confused because you were talking about security and you were talking about regulation, etc., etc. These are different things because security can be security when it comes to operation. It can be denial of, I guess. It was not me. It was somebody else who did the job, which means operator who are doing the job should be separated, etc. So these are different levels. That's number one. And you mentioned how you do all of these certification. In my world, when I started on 79, we were talking about specification, then it was the next one, test the specification, and then development.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. But the problem is you don't have the time. And I said, okay, let's start with the programming, and then we do the stuff. And this has been not only for security, it was even for documentation. I don't have time. I should do the documentation later on. This is the thing I have been hearing in 30 years. Yeah. And this is the same.
Yeah. So any comments on this?
I can comment. I think the CEO is part of the management. So I think the management is always guilty to do bad things to security anyway. But absolutely, bad excuses, I think it is, to say I don't have time, actually. You must take the time.
And the last part, I'm not going to talk too much. The last part is, actually, you do have lots of very good security documentation, but nobody reads it.
So now we get AI that can help to read the documentation and validate that everything is implemented,
and
right?
one more thing, when it comes to regulation.
Yep.
The regulators are too late You don't have any regulation when it comes to AI. The only thing which is there is about ethical AI. This is not really about security for AI. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Talk too much.
I understand there are some questions on Menti, right?
All right, so let's start with the first one. What are the biggest pitfalls in your eyes?
Who wants to start?
I would say it's rather impossible to actually answer that question because it depends on who you are. I mean, if you are a smaller entity, you have the challenge with key personnel. If this guy or girl quits and is responsible for the IT security, you're basically starting over from scratch again. If you are mid-size, you have other types of problems. If you are large, you have this sort of the gap thing that I was talking about. So it differs depending on which type of entity.
Any comments from you two?
I would say same when you renovate a house. If you start in every corner and tearing down the walls and fixing, you're never going to finish. Focus. Do one room at a time. Do one project. Do it well. Document it. Go to the next one.
Do a plan.
So do a plan. Before you start, you should do a plan that actually leads to an end.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Do you have another one?
How do you ensure that the money invested generates better security?
How do you know that it's worth it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to repeat myself again. It is this thing of focusing to actually get the bang for the buck. If you start implementing ISO 27001, if you do it all, you will have, I would say, 2/3 that does not give you bang for the buck for the next few years, because it's all about the improvement and sort of the tuning the sail before the sailboat has actually gained speed. That's not meaningful. So you need to prioritize, make things good plan, good order, and all that.
Anna, Jimmy, any experience of how to be able to convince to make changes?
Ensure that security can help the business to reach the business goals and fewer incidents, because incidents cost money. That's for sure.
So it's back to the normal argument within a business regarding so it ends up being a financial issue. You need to tie it in there in a correct way.
Yeah. Do an ROI or business justification on it.
Yeah. Okay. Next. Any more?
So
Good.
being a junior developer as opposed to a C-level, what can I do to push my company in this direction?
I think if you are a junior developer and you are interested in security, you can sort of introduce that thinking with your colleagues and work on sort of the secure development guidelines and all that. So that's the sort of bottom-up approach of sharing your knowledge with your colleagues. That would be sort of my intuitive answer.
I agree 100% to that. Use it as an inspiration. Bring the message out in the organization. Then you can maybe get other developers.
Jimmy?
Yeah,
Same.
I think if you're a developer, you're always going to think security is in the code from the moment you start with it. Not the addition or options or nothing like that, but force it to be security on first byte, actually.
I must give a comment myself, being an old person, been working with security. If you're a young person, don't listen to the old farts. Do things in your own way, because you are the inspiration for the older people, the ones that listen, the ones that should listen to you. So try to do things your way, because that's probably much better than what you think.
Yep. Completely agree.
Anything else?
I would say we, as older people, then with a little bit more gray hair, we actually listen to the younger generation.
Yes, absolutely.
And let them take space.
Is there anything in the general discourse that you find to be simply incorrect or even harmful?
That was a good one. Not only what should be done, what should not be done.
Yeah. I mean, we have mentioned it, the over-regulation part, sort of the illness that we have seen in legislation on the EU level for quite some time now. I think that can actually impair the work we are doing to develop, I mean, both in terms of growth, but also in terms of having great security and make that work with the business. The more detailed, the more it will obstruct rather than help.
It also eats resources, right? That we could have used
Absolutely,
for better things.
waste resources.
And innovation is going down.
Innovation going down.
I
Can you
think so.
expand on that?
I think about if you over-regulate and have too much rules and regulations that you kind of,
Yeah, I mean, exactly. At each of these types of shifts that have, well, both the greater ones and the smaller ones, we develop our work processes and all that. And suddenly you will find that what was a great InfoSec guideline 3 years ago isn't that anymore. So we can't have that in legislation.
But that ends up being sort of part of why, for example, myself and Netnod think ex-ante regulation, and even the Commission talked about that. When you have an area which is driven by innovation, you should not talk about compliance issues. You should talk about the result and the effect, and let innovation drive how the actual problem should be solved.
Yeah. And
So
they do
that's
the other way around.
And they, yeah. Jimmy,
I agree on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Oh, the
we
come
got
on.
2 more questions.
Oh, cool. 2 more. I
Um,
think that's, and then there's one there in the back, 2 more in the back, and then I think we are about the end of time. So, okay. Two in the back, and then 2 more on Menti. Yeah.
You mentioned over-regulation. We are getting a wonderful nation-scale example of what happens when people say, oh, there's too much regulation, let's get rid of it all. If you talk to anyone who involved in flying, they say that regulations are written in blood. And the reality is that a lot of regulations are there for a purpose. And they're there because someone has screwed up and someone has got hurt. So how do we make sure that the regulations balance what is needed to protect people and make us safe, whilst not being too onerous? Mentioning no online safety acts in the UK at the moment.
Okay. Yep. And I think that this is also going back to what has already been said, but let's summarize it. And it is, I think, genuinely, I believe that the NIS2 and the CER directive, it's there for a purpose. It's good on an overarching level that we can harmonize this and make Europe great again. But still, when you go about into the details on how you will actually set these frameworks up, it's very important to take into account that this is an area where the development is so fast that you can't update legislation like yearly or every second or third year, because you don't have sort of the foresight into it. I mean, you are an entity, this is your law, you have to abide it. You can't plan ahead that, it will probably change in 3 years, right? So I think you need to be very careful on actually how you implement this in the law. Sorry, too much time for me.
You're okay with that as well?
Yeah.
Because I think personally that sometimes it's not often that the legislation that is actually written will lead to effect towards it, which it was intended. So there's a gap there as well. We had another question there in the back.
Yes, thank you. Thomas Haggerty, thank you for the panel. I am curious if you are in a position of management or you know someone in a position of management and you have a very strongly held belief that we need that feature in this product, but all your developers were to tell you, actually, it's bad, we don't need this. What would you do?
So, an honest answer. You 3 start, and then I can say what I would do.
Okay, it might be a trick question, but if I were, I would first ask them to actually, sort of present the case, why we should or should not do that, and if if it's still a tie for some reason, you have to bring in a judge, right?
It's not a tie. Everyone, except for you, has the view that
Oh,
it's
okay.
more important for
So
security.
of course I would listen to all my employees then.
So this is also an answer to some of the questions that have been asked.
Okay.
Yeah. Anna?
You know, listen to the developers and listen to the person that wants to have it, and then you need to, you know, discuss the reasons, pros and cons, and list them. And then basically, oh, you have 5+ for Y and 10 for no. Then you know is a winner.
Jimmy?
Management is not always deciding everything.
Listen to the one who has the knowledge, actually.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, I would say that me being more on the C level, it might be the case that I'm using words that I want to reach some kind of effect, and the developers are suggesting certain sort of feature or whatever. And it might, to start with, I would investigate whether we actually talk about the same thing or use different language, because sometimes we just talk beside each other. Yep. And the next thing is we need to agree on what effect do we want, and then try to talk about will whatever they proposed reach that effect or something else. And at that point in time, I really, and listen, all of you at Netnod, I really try to adjust myself to the effect that we actually should have. So, so my point is that sometimes both parties are right, and that is sometimes the most difficult situation, that you need to be able to match the effect with the things, and then sort of maybe start some kind of project where you, okay, let's try this, and then we, in 3 weeks, we check together whether we are actually still walking down together the same path. One thing that I think is negative in that kind of situation is that people continue to just talk and talk and talk. You lose time, and then you have either the next shiny thing coming up that everyone wants to implement, which might be wrong, or you don't implement anything where either of the two would actually have been right. So 2 more questions, and we have 5 minutes, or 3, or something. We'll take these 2, and then we can take the comments after this session. Yeah.
Is this an area where compliance requirements such as NIS2 will help, or is it a fundamentally different problem?
What does this refer to?
The previous question, I guess. In that case, I'm
regarding
not really sure these 2 will help.
Not likely, I would say.
No.
But
I also would say no. Jim, I don't know what your view is.
I agree on that. No.
Because I think we're coming back to NIS2 talking about how you do things, but not what. And these kind of discussions are more the what thing than the how thing. Yeah. Next, last question.
Short question. Do you feel that we are doing enough?
No.
Good. Fredrik?
I mean, let's face it, we have a certain set of resources. We need to use them the right way, and we need to accomplish, we need to do better, and we need to accomplish a lot of goals in the next upcoming years. So I would say that we're good on track, but we can still be better.
Good. And Anna, I stopped you there at the no. So can you elaborate a little bit on the no?
I think we can take out a lot of unnecessary work. Work more agile and smart, use the resources wise, because we do have a lack of resources. I think that's important, and focus. Laser focus on a few things instead of trying to fix a zillion things at the same time.
Jimmy?
Anna said my words, but absolutely. So you must focus and bring it to the floor for things, not the plan only.
And make management aware.
Make management aware.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, I hope you learned a little bit, or at least got sort of some good knowledge from these people. So thank you very much for coming, and thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Tack.